My first job was to open and close doors. I thought about maybe I work in a cafe. I applied for jobs everywhere. I applied to Starbucks, they rejected me. I had a coffee shop that I used to go to every day. It's called Manchester Press. They put me in the bar section, but mainly to cut oranges. Almost 2 years from that point to eventually compete in my first competition. But I didn't have enough confidence. I was still pretty new as a barista. So when I prepare, I know I had to prepare more, harder, smarter than everyone else. I was tired physically from the training. I had 8 or 10 espresso before 8 a.m. I was tired mentally from not achieving my personal goal. That's when I didn't want to compete anymore. Whatever happens, this was going to be my last WBC.
Mikael, how exactly do you present yourself to the wider world right now? Who are you truly?
Generally, if it's related to coffee, I say I'm Mikael Jasin, 2024 World Barista Champion. When we use that title, the best practice from SCA is to include our year, to show respect to the other world champions who also have their year, so that people don't abuse that title World Barista Champion. But when I introduce myself to any people, I just say my name. I say I work in coffee. Very rarely I tell them right away that I'm a coffee champion, because for most people it's not really relevant.
We spent this week together, and you mentioned that this year you've already taken your 70th flight, and after you became a world champion, your life changed. You got contracts with big brands, Toria Arduino, Da Vinci. You've seen the whole world, but it wasn't always like this. Once you were born and went through a long journey to achieve this success. Tell us in detail where you're from, the key milestones, and how you made your way to becoming a champion.
I was born and I grew up in Indonesia, in Jakarta. I had a pretty good childhood, like not crazy rich, not dirt poor, or I guess right in the middle. I had a pretty good education. I'm the only child. My parents have undivided attention when they were nurturing me. I think from a very young age, it was instilled in me that I have to do my best in what I do. They say it in quite a different way than other Asian parents. Asian parents, are, especially in their generation, generally want you to be, like a doctor, accountant, lawyer. They're both lawyers, by the way, so they had a pretty traditional job. To me, they were like, you can do whatever you want, but make sure you put in your best effort. Doesn't mean you have to be the best, but as long as you try your best, then we're happy with it. At least you try. It was like that during school. I wasn't the smartest, but I was always in the sort of top 10 students. We have 45 people in one class. Normally in Indonesia, it's a big class. I was always somewhere in the top 10. But that's because I try. Not, not because I'm smart. Yeah, maybe a little bit smart, but I definitely had to put in a lot of effort. That sort of translates to whatever I do. Education, professionally in coffee. So when I eventually moved to Australia, I moved when I was 18 to study. Then it was like that too. For university, again, I was not the smartest, but I had a pretty okay score because of that mentality. So when I did work, my first job was a doorman in Melbourne. Yeah. There's one period when I was 19. My dad called me up and then he was like, things are not looking so good financially in Indonesia for my company. He has a law firm. From next week, I can pay your school but not your lifestyle anymore, which is actually the reality for a lot of people. But after that phone call, I was like, oh shit. At that point, I never worked anywhere. The only work that I've done was I used to play baseball in high school, and I got paid for that. So sort of like a student athlete thing. So I applied for jobs everywhere. I applied to Starbucks. They rejected me.
Whoa, Starbucks.
Who's laughing now? No, but yeah, I didn't have any experience, so a lot of places rejected me. And the only place that accepted me was a boutique. They sell pens, Mont Blanc. They sell writing instruments, timepiece, leather goods. And it was as a doorman, so my first job was to open and close doors. It was very humbling for me because I grew up with some privilege, even though we're not,
How much time?
I was a doorman for maybe 2 months, and then because I did my own research about the products, and then I tried to talk to customers, they promoted me to become a sales assistant. And then I became sales assistant there for a year, and then I moved to a clothing store selling clothes, which I didn't like. Not because of the clothes, but I didn't feel any passion doing that. I was just a sales assistant. I was pretty good at sales, always been, but I just felt like I didn't care about what I sell, and I don't like doing that. I thought about maybe I work in a cafe, because in Melbourne, especially back then, 2013, 12, no, back then it was 2000 and maybe 11, 12. Coffee was really big in Melbourne. Everybody drinks coffee. And I had a coffee shop that I used to go to every day. It's called Manchester Press. It's not really just known for coffee, but it's known for the food and the coffee together. So not really specialty coffee, especially back then it was still Italian dark roast. Now they have specialty coffee, but back then it was, yeah. But in the early days in Melbourne, it was considered good coffee. So I used to go there every day, and then the baristas are very friendly. They know my name, they know my order. As soon as I walked in, even before I order, if there's a line, they already make my coffee, and then I just have to pay. So I thought, oh, this is cool. These are people that I want to work with because they seem to be very passionate, very friendly. So I applied initially as a barista, but because I had no experience, they obviously couldn't put me as a barista. So they put me as a waiter. Every now and then somebody will call in sick in the kitchen, so my manager asked me if I want to work in the kitchen, so I did work in the kitchen. Not really to cook, but it's really to prepare, cutting avocados, plucking mint, coriander, things like that, right? Because also they only sell bagels, so it wasn't like a full kitchen. It was more like a sandwich shop, so there was no actual cooking involved. So I did that, and then eventually I kept asking them to teach me how to make coffee because it looked cool. And also the one that got my attention about coffee was initially latte art, because I think it's just very cool that baristas can pour latte art in the cup, especially with no etching and things like that. They put me in the bar section, but mainly to cut oranges. Not really to do any coffee, just cutting orange, doing juice, like I spent, I don't know, quite a while actually, a few months just cutting oranges. So I get really good at cutting oranges. And then eventually they put me on the machine, but only for 30 minutes before closing time. So very quiet, normally only 1 or 2 orders, but just enough for me to practice making coffee. Not really to make coffee that tastes good, like doing dial-in, but just following whatever the head barista already said in the morning, and then I just make exactly the same recipe. So very simple, not trying to make coffee that tastes good, just making coffee according to the standard of operations. Eventually, I think a barista resigned, so I had a chance to be on the machine. So eventually I started working as a barista there. Back then, I didn't have any formal education about coffee, so there was just a lot of self-learning from reading Home Barista Forum. Back then, there was no YouTube yet, right? So I learned through Home Barista Forum, which back then was actually very, very advanced.
In 2012.
12. It was actually a lot of the things that we do now, WDT, RDT with the water, aligning grinders, the home baristas were already talking about it back then. Even the professionals were not really talking about it yet, but the home baristas were. I guess because everybody is taking it as a hobby, and then you have mechanical engineers who really like coffee and talk about it. You have all these people talking about it. So that's sort of how my barista journey began.
Am I right in understanding that what followed was the road to the championship? What were the key milestones along the way?
So I left Manchester Press in 2012. I left because I had a work opportunity in Asia. I was working in Hong Kong, a little bit of China, Singapore, Indonesia, in the fashion industry. I used to do modeling. I left because it was also a pretty good opportunity for me to travel. I wanted to travel more than I do modeling. I wasn't very successful as a model. I was too short, I looked too normal, I didn't have big muscles, like a lot of things, but I got to travel. But I didn't really like the industry. I think for the same reasons that I left the retail industry before, because I didn't feel like I had passion in it. It also helped that I wasn't very successful, so I already have coffee on the side. I'm like, maybe I go back and make coffee. So I went back to Australia, and then I joined a cafe called Operator 25. So Operator 25 was called Operator 25 because the building that it was in was the very first telephone operator building. So back then you still have the switchboard with the telephone. So that was the building for that. So they call it Operator, and then 25 is because the address is 25 Will Street. It's still there. So I started working there just as a junior barista. But I became a head barista within 6 months, I think, because the head barista had to move back to the UK, I think. So I became a head barista, and they serve specialty coffee there. Not very high level, but at least specialty coffee. They're working with a pretty well-known roastery called Code Black, who now has multiple national champions and all that. I started working there, and that was around 2013. So at the same time, there was WBC Melbourne. The first time I ever knew about barista competition. Before that, I thought barista is just barista, something that you do, you make coffee. I didn't know, I didn't know there was an actual world championship around it. The World Barista Championship started in the year 2000. So by that point, there were already 13 editions of World Barista Championship, but I only knew about it the first time in 2013. So I thought it was cool. I didn't get to go because I had to be at work, but I remember watching it online, on my phone and things like that, and it was a really cool shift of mindset for me, because now I could see there's a career path in doing barista job. Especially because I was told when I grew up to be the best at what I do, right? Or try to be the best at what I do. So I thought, this is a path that I can follow. But I didn't have enough confidence. I was still pretty new as a barista, like only 1 or 2 years as a barista. So I knew my level was still very far. It took me almost 2 years from that point to eventually compete in my first competition. It was Coffee and Good Spirits. I did Coffee and Good Spirits because I thought it was going to be more relaxed. Instead of 15 minutes, it's only 10 minutes. And then instead of 12 drinks, it was 4 drinks.
4 drinks.
Yes, so 2 sets of 2. At least that's what I thought, but obviously it has its own difficulties because you're mixing alcohol and different ingredients and coffee, so it has its own set of difficulties. But it was more relaxed in terms of the presentation. It's a bit more open to interpretation. So I thought this would be a great opportunity for me to practice my English, practice my presentation, and also practice being in the stress of competition. So I did that, competed in 2015, and I came second place in the national.
The first time, second place, nice.
Yeah, not because, I really think not because I'm great, but because the level was low. Even the champion, I think, he was obviously a champion for a reason, but I think it was also in the beginning of Coffee and Good Spirits competition in Australia. So the level wasn't very high. So I came second, but it gave me enough confidence to at least try again. I think if I didn't do well, I would be pretty disheartened and maybe not want to try again, but because I came second, I had a little bit of confidence in going back. So the next year, I did Coffee and Good Spirits again, came second again. uh,
The second time?
Yes.
Second
Yeah,
place.
I know.
Nice.
Yeah, but it's not bad, right? Like it shows me that I'm pretty good, you know.
Stability.
Yeah, I wasn't really bad. I wasn't really good. Okay. On the same year, I did my first barista championship. I competed the first time in Australia in barista. I think I came fourth in the regional in Melbourne, and so Australia has, I think back then 3 or 5 different regional, actually 3. So Melbourne, Canberra, and Perth, I think. And Melbourne at that time was the, I guess, hardest difficulty. 2015, Sasha Sestic won his Worlds. So the next year when you compete, you know, it's the WBC Champion home country, right? So the level suddenly increased. So I competed with Melbourne with a lot of people who now are well-known figures in coffee. Hugh Kelly, Matt Lewin, Anthony Douglas, Jack Simpson. Everybody competed in Melbourne around that same time. So I came fourth in the regional, so it made me pretty confident again, but obviously in the national level it's a whole different level. I went overtime in my first national. I was very nervous, a lot of mistakes, like very first-time competitor. I don't know my ranking, but I didn't make it to the semi-final. Must have been 30-something. That year, Hugh Kelly won, I think, 2016. But it was really good experience for me to compete with all these barista rock stars. You know, like, at least I could feel like I was on the same backstage, competing with them, even though the level was still high, but it helps my confidence. At the end of 2016, I finished my master's degree, and then my visa was finishing up. So I was at a crossroad where I had to choose whether or not I want to stay in Australia or I move back to Indonesia or go somewhere else.
Why?
Well, so the visa was running out. And then if I were to stay in Australia, I had to get sponsored by the cafe that I was working at. Actually, I was the co-owner of that cafe at that time. It's the same group as Operator 25, but we opened a new place. But the rule was that if you get sponsored there, you have to stay there for 4 years in the same role. So I was a head barista. If I stayed there for the next 4 years, 2016 until 2020, I had to be a head barista in that same place. And the other option was to go to Indonesia and join Common Grounds, the team that I still train with. Common Grounds at that time already have a 3-time Indonesian Barista Champion, one of the co-founders, Joshua. And at the same time, they had the Singapore Barista Champion working as a head roaster. I could see that if I stay in Australia, I have to do the same thing in a place that is really good as a cafe, but not as a competition team. Or move back to Indonesia, get paid in Indonesian salary, which was in comparison, very low. But I could train with these people. And because at that time I already have the dream of becoming a World Barista Champion, I chose the Indonesian route. It was a big bet. It was really risky. Financially, it was risky.
Yeah.
In terms of quality of life, it was also risky. I'm Indonesian, but at that time, Melbourne was the #1 most livable city in the world. So I had to leave a lot of comfort behind to go to Indonesia. But I took a bet on myself. I was greatly inspired by, at that time, I saw stories of, I think, LeBron James or something. and it was like, oh, he was offered a deal with one of the big sports brands. But he said no, because he knew he was going to be a really good player, so that Nike would eventually offer him his contract. So he took a bet on himself. He still have to put in the work, and then he win big after with contracts and everything. So I'm like, okay, I'll do that. Go back to Indonesia.
Like Jordan.
Yeah, like Jordan. So, but I gave myself 2 years. I told myself if in 2 years I cannot win, I will go back to Australia, be barista again. Luckily, I won with it. Yeah. So the first time I compete, I didn't win. I came second again. The first time I competed in Indonesia was 2018. I came second place in Barista Championship. But it was okay because I think I needed to be in that ranking so that I learned and I could go back the next year and really change my approach. And that's when I approached competition like an athlete. Like from 2018, I made that change because I was tired of coming second place. So I thought I need to do something different. So yeah, eventually 2019 I competed again. I won that year. Yeah, that was the first time I won my national. In Indonesia, yes. Yeah. Small gap, I won by 20 points, I think.
Next Boston, yeah?
Yes, so that's Boston. So I won in February, and then the WBC Boston was in April 2019.
What do you feel?
Going into Boston, the goal was to do the best that I can do in training, in preparation, and in competition, and hopefully be in the final.
What do you watch before championship? Maybe competitors'
Performance?
Yeah.
No, I didn't watch any of their performance. I watched previous champions' performance to learn from the previous champions. Learning workflow, learning how to present. That one I do. But the competitors that I competed with, I don't think I did watch any of them. But I know the competition was very tough. There was, back then, Cole Theroux from Canada. There was Matthew Thais from Switzerland. There was Michalis from Greece. He was the World Coffee and Good Spirits champion. There was Matt Lewin from Australia, who beat me before. I knew my level at that time, and that level is still pretty low. I was a first-time champion, came from Indonesia, who back then had no history in being in the final. So when I prepare, I know I had to prepare more, harder, smarter than everyone else. So my mentality was I just have to put in as many hours as possible. For me, that meant I had to wake up at 4 most of the morning, and then I went to training right away. So I get to training place at like 5. But I was still working, right? So
like UFC champion.
Yeah, pretty much, because I still had my day job at Common Ground. So at 10 a.m. or 9 a.m., I have to go to work. So I have to go to work 9 a.m. till 5 p.m., which is pretty standard. So I had to train before, and then I had to train after that. So.
And how was that day structured?
So I wake up at 4, and then I went to training place. I get there normally at 5, and then I train. In the morning, normally I do my presentation training and coffee tasting. And then at 7, I go to the gym. Go to work at 9, sometimes 10, depending on the day. Work until 5, and then go to training again. But because Jakarta, traffic, sometimes I get to sometimes I get to the training place at like 6 p.m., sometimes 7 p.m. And then I will train until 10 p.m. And then I'll try to sleep by 11. I did that for a really long time. It was
for 4-5 hours of sleep every day.
Yeah, every day 4-5 hours of sleep. That set my mentality for the next few years actually. That's when I started waking up at 4, because I know if I want to dream big, I have to work big. Like if you cannot have a big dream and not work for it, right? You have to. If your dream is big, you have to match your work with your dream, right? So it's important to do both. So I did that, and obviously I came 4th in Boston, which was a really big achievement for Indonesia.
Great result. First.
Yeah, first WBC, and then went to the final right away. It was really funny because we were very focused on the preliminary and the semi-final.
How much points for free place?
Quite big, maybe 40, 50. Cole Turot was third place from Canada, who ended up becoming my coach for Busan.
Sorry, Mikael, sorry.
No, but it's good. That's when we met each other the first time, and that's how we became friends. For preliminary, semi-final, we just wanted to try our best, and then on the final day, we were a little bit like a kid in a candy store where we lost a little bit of focus because we were so happy to be in the final. So that's something that we learned. When you're in the final, you still have to focus. The job is not done. You still have to compete. In Boston, we were too happy to be in the final, so we lost a little bit of focus. But it was okay. Fourth place was great, and we achieved our target of being in the final. When I came home, I had opportunities to work with brands because Indonesia is a big market. I was the first finalist from Indonesia, so that's when my work with Victorio Ardino started. I work with
in Indonesia.
Yes, in Indonesia. Yeah. So I was hired as a national brand ambassador. Yeah. That also led me to different opportunities. I started my first company at the end of 2019. That was my consulting company, so good. And because of that, I started learning how to work with brands. I started not really making content, but a little bit already. I think the content making started in COVID. Before that, it was not really a big content making. It was just I have a social media platform and people follow me because of the competition. Next, I competed again in February 2020, just before COVID. The World Championship was supposed to be Melbourne in May 2020, but obviously they canceled that. So when that happened, I shifted my focus on trying to improve Indonesian coffee through post-harvest processing. Because at that time, I was already doing some coffee fermentation through a grant that I received from the German government. So I thought, WBC is cancelled. Maybe I can focus my attention to working with Indonesian coffee. And then hopefully, if the coffee is good enough, I can compete with Indonesian coffee whenever the next WBC is. So I did that. During COVID, I did a lot of that. I tried to do online courses as well. Didn't really, it was fine, but so many people were doing online courses. So the initial response was great, but then there was no follow-up because people are just, I guess, fatigued and jaded with too many options. But it offered me time to work with coffee processing. And in 2021, I started Catur, the export company, with my business partners. At the end of July, they announced WBC Milan. So they announced that, and that's when I shifted my focus back to competing again. It was 90 days. At that point, I was pretty experienced with competition. I had my training plan. Obviously, now I have two companies. So you're an entrepreneur. You know, when you're an entrepreneur, you don't have a 9-to-5 job. You have 24-hour work, right? People think when you own a business, then you get to do whatever you want, but no.
More free?
No. You are less free. But at least you can schedule your day the way you want it. I still work, obviously, because during working hours is when it's the most effective for work because your staff is there, your people are there. Everybody responds to you during working hours. So I had a little bit more relaxed training schedule, but still I had to train. I still woke up, actually for Milan, I woke up at 3:45, not even 4. Because my goal was to use Indonesian coffee, which honestly was a lot harder than competing with any coffee or Panamanian geisha, Colombian coffee. It was just the reality, you know. The base is lower, so you have to put in a lot more effort to make it taste as good. It was possible, but it was just harder. So I woke up earlier, 3:45. I only exercise for normally 20 minutes or 30 sometimes. I use for Boston, I exercise for 1 hour. For Milan, I only exercise for 20 to 30 minutes so that I have just enough workout. The goal was to just stay healthy, not to become an athlete or whatever. So I did that. I went to training. It was really hard training, mainly because we were trying a lot of the coffees that we work with, different lots. I had 8 or 10 espresso before 8 a.m. That was, yeah. It was really bad. Like, it was so bad that after WBC Milan, I had, what do you call it? GERD. It's like gastric problems. I couldn't, well, the doctors say I cannot have coffee for 5 years. I was, yeah, no.
No.
I didn't have coffee for 3 months after WBC Milan. But during the training, I had to just drink a lot of coffee every day. It was good because when I went and competed in Milan, it didn't feel like I was competing alone. It felt like I was competing for my country. A lot of people supported me, especially after the first round. No one knew that I was going to use Indonesian coffee, but after the first round, people saw, right? Yeah, a lot of people gave their support. A lot of people wished me the best and everything.
Am I right in understanding that you wanted to beat Colombia and Ethiopia with Indonesian coffee?
Not necessarily to beat. The main goal was to showcase Indonesian coffee. The secondary goal is to win for myself. Yeah. But I understand that if you want to showcase something, nobody cares if you're ranked 30, 40, 50. So I know I had to be ideally in the final, but I have to score high enough so that people believe my story. Because if you say, oh, this coffee is great, it has a great story, but then it doesn't taste good, you don't deliver that story, right? I ended up 7th, which is just 1 place away from the final. 12 points difference from being in the final, so very, very close. Very, very painful. But the main goal of promoting Indonesian coffee was achieved, because after that, a lot of media covered the story, both international and national media. I got my first Barista magazine cover was because of that, because of my story. So it was really good. But because of that, at the same time, I was burned out. That's when I didn't want to compete anymore. I was tired physically from the training. I was tired mentally from not achieving my personal goal. And then also at the same time, I didn't know what else to talk about. At that point, I already talked about fermentation for a really long time. I've talked about fermentation in coffee since 2018 maybe. And that's when I took my break from competing actively. I still wanted to win. So I knew I couldn't relax. What I could do was to take a break from competition actively as a competitor, but I knew I had to be around competition to keep myself updated. I was helping my teammates who competed with me. So after I won in 2020, the next Barista Championship 2022, my wife was competing. She's always competed. So she won. I helped her a little bit for her to win. And then 2023, another person from our team won, Patrick. And at the same time, I was coaching the Thai competitor, Jane. Coaching is a big word, helping the Thai competitor. So that way I could see competition from a different angle. In Athens, WBC Athens 2023, I was also given the opportunity to MC in the final round. So when you MC, you also taste the coffee in the final. So that was very helpful for me because my taste buds got an updated version of what the coffee tastes like in the final. After that, I felt like I was ready to go back. The funny thing is I also came back with Coffee and Good Spirits. I think Coffee and Good Spirits was in June, and then Barista competition was in December. So I'm like, okay, I have not been competing for 2 years. I'm a little bit rusty. So I want to go back to competition and I need a warm up. So I did Coffee and Good Spirits. And I feel like it was funny because the very first time I competed was Coffee and Good Spirits in 2015. And then here I am in 2023, warming up for barista competition again. Every time I compete, the mentality is to do my best, not to just do whatever. But I came second again. Yes.
Three
times Coffee and Good
Second.
Spirits, always second. So I think that's a sign. Yeah, I think Coffee and Good Spirits is not meant for me. I was beaten by a really good champion, Shayla. She came third in the world the year before that, and then she was a returning champion. But it was good. It was good for me because I could feel the stage again. Coffee and Good Spirits is a lot more casual, so I tried a lot of different things. The purpose was to really just try everything out. So I came second, I had a good warm-up, and in December, I competed in my Nationals, Barista Championship. I used a Colombian coffee from Las Flores because I was in Colombia in October. It was a knowledge exchange project, so I tried to learn whatever they do in Colombia. The Colombians try to learn whatever we do in Indonesia. So I used the coffee. I won my Nationals by 100 points. I don't want to brag, but I'm pretty proud of it.
The third time.
Yeah, the third time.
WBC.
Third time WBC, yes, I know.
Busan, Korea.
Yeah. I had 5 months this time around, from December until May. Deep down, I know. Whatever happens, this was going to be my last WBC.
Last round.
Yeah, I think so, because at that point, I was already a barista champion from 2019 till 2024, so almost 5 years. Business need me. Well, now that I won, it's a whole different story. But at least I thought that, like I had to work, right? Because competition is not work. Competition is extracurricular activity. But I knew it was my last one, and because it was my last one, I want to win. Our team was experienced, but we knew that we needed help from outside so that we can benefit from their experience as well. The first person that I went to said no. That's okay. And then the second person I went to was Cole and Dave from Canada. They have been a good friends, and they also just coach Boram, the champion before me. So they coached Boram won. So they said yes. And that's when we started training together.
Online?
Yeah, online calls.
What is it?
And then after that, they came to Indonesia. So it's a combination of online. I send a lot of videos, and then they look at my videos.
For example?
So it was like a 15-minute presentation, like normal, and then send a video to them. They will make a comment about, oh, maybe instead of doing this, maybe you move this way. And then they make comments about my script, things like that. But with barista coaching, face-to-face is still the most useful. You can do certain things online, but nothing beats face-to-face with anything, not just with barista coaching. They came to Indonesia, spent 5 days. At that point, I kind of already talked about mindfulness, but we didn't call it mindfulness back then. I was talking about detachment, which means to detach yourself from a situation so you have a different perspective. So I talked about that in my national, and then for Worlds, we were gonna do that. But after they came to Indonesia, one thing led to another, it became mindfulness. So kind of like zoom out. Detachment is one tool for mindfulness, but mindfulness is bigger. So we talk about that, and then that's when the idea of walking around, stopping, smelling the flowers, that all came that way. It was really good because for the first time, I had someone who had more experience than me in a competition. Before that, our team is pretty good, a lot of experience, but those experiences are our experience. So it was a collective experience in the same team. With this one, it was a different experience from a different side, right? So, and the level is higher. So it was good because then we can really brainstorm. It wasn't coaching like telling what to do, it was coaching about brainstorm. So it was really productive. I feel like they were there for 5 days, but I feel like we did 6 months of work in that 5 days because the level is just so high. And it helped that I was at that point a very experienced competitor, so I can make changes very quickly. With new competitors, sometimes it takes time to, memorize a new script, type a new script. It takes you 2 days to learn it. With me, it's very quick. I had to believe that I can win. But I think other people who see the training knew that I would be at least in the top 3. Because the coffee was really good, the presentation was really good, everything was in line. But obviously, we had really good competitors. We had Matthew, we had Jack Simpson, we had Taka, Fede from Italy, like really good competitors around. So, but we were confident. You have to. If you're competing and you're aiming to win, you have to have that confidence in you, right? And yeah, when we went to Busan, there was no big issue in the preparation. Well, the biggest issue was me not being allowed to fly, because I had my Korean visa, but my Korean visa was attached to my old passport. So the number was the old passport. So when I go to the check-in counter in Indonesia, I only had my new passport because everything is online, right? I thought it's connected. Anyway, they didn't let me board. I was already there. Flight was leaving. So Yesi, my wife, she left without me first. And then I had to fly the next day. So that was the biggest hiccup. Other than that, training was smooth. Coffee tasted pretty good. No big drama with the coffee. First round was always hard for me because there's a lot of nerves. Whatever you do in the training area will not exactly be the same as the competition area, right? The tables are bigger, the machine's a little bit different, a lot of things like that. So we did the first round, it was fine. The judges were a little bit confused, so we did a change from the first round to semi-final with the instruction. Eventually I won by 1 point.
I saw that when you came out, you started your speech by saying, I haven't performed in a while. I took a break, so now I'm back. Can you talk about your performance? How did it go? How did you structure it?
During the training in Jakarta with Cole and Dave, the idea of talking about mindfulness and burnout started. We had the opportunity to be very transparent and very vulnerable in front of the world. And it was very scary to be vulnerable in front of the world, because it's not just the 4 people that you talk in front of you, but I know this video will be watched by, at the moment, I don't know, hundreds of thousands views. So I know whatever I say will become very personal to me, but it will be watched by a lot of people. We decided that yes, we have to be vulnerable, we have to be transparent and truthful to the feelings. I decided with the script writing to be very truthful. I said, I used to compete, I got burnout, and I had to use the same passion, the same fire that used to fuel me but already burned me. Now I have to use the same fire to get me back to competition. The final version, like my competition has 1,400 words. Before that it was 1,900 words. Because I want to be more, I guess, poetic with the words. But it's still a coffee competition, so you still have to mention a lot of things about coffee, not just about your personal story. The challenge was to balance the human aspect and the coffee aspect. And the closing was also, I think, very powerful.
I'm thankful to have gone through the fire and share my story so that others can also see the light. Today, coffee is the one that reminds us to stop and smell the flowers. But you can apply mindfulness in anything in life, anything from drinking coffee to dealing with tough times. Now please reconnect with your soul and enjoy your espresso. Time.
I also won because of that. I think it was a topic that was not talked about properly before. Somebody has talked about it. A German competitor, Jana, from 2021, talked about her being anxious and burning out, which was a very powerful story. Actually, that was my inspiration for WBC Busan. But I think we just managed to hit both aspects, the coffee and the personal story. So, yeah.
And what did you feel when they were announcing first place, then third, second, and when they called your name? But what did you feel?
In my years of competition preparation, I do a lot of visualization technique. So you visualize your goal, you visualize your movements. My hand's going to do this, it's going to do that. One of the tools of visualization is to visualize your goal, and so that in your mind is that you already achieved your goal. Keep telling yourself that I am already a champion, I am already a champion, I'm already a champion. Your body believes it even before it happens, right? Leading up to Busan, I already visualized my name being called the winner so many times. I visualize everything, because the more detail you visualize, the better it is for your beliefs. So I visualize, and then I visualize when they announce my name, I will move this way, I will give Boram a hug, I will take the trophy from him with my right hand, move it to my left hand, look at it, point to my team members. So when they announced my name, I was just doing these movements in real life, because to me it's like practice, right? Okay, I've practiced this in my head so many times, now I have to do it, like how you do presentation in competition. So I was doing exactly that. Give Boram a hug, took the trophy, move it to my left hand, look at it, point to my teammates. So actually, like, I was happy, but a lot of it was executing my vision. I only processed the win 5 days after that, when I actually took time to sit down, meditate, and process my feelings. But before that, it was just executing the steps. Yeah. So that's why maybe I didn't look surprised, or I didn't have really big emotions, because I've seen it happen so many times in my head. Which is both good and bad. Good is because then it became a reality. Bad is, I feel like you don't live in the moment, like you're just executing. But to me, it was necessary to do this visualization. Yeah.
So does that mean you agree that thought gives rise to matter?
For sure. It's been proven in psychology many times that you attract what you visualize, you manifest things into reality. It's not exactly 100% science, because it's very hard to explain this. There are so many examples already: athletes, successful business people, coffee competitors who use this method to win. And this is not just me anymore now. The teammates who have done really well, my teammates who have done really well, even another world champion from our team, use the same techniques. They visualize, they visualize their movements, they visualize lifting their trophies, looking at the trophies, things like that. It worked, Yeah.
Do you read about it? Maybe books?
I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, so I'm pretty used to the idea of this. And also I work with psychologists, not for specifically competition, but for life in general. And she also helped me with fine-tuning my visualization. But there are books about it. You can use visualization in many different ways. One is to visualize your goal, but also for learning. And this is useful for coffee, actually. Mostly, when you're very new to visualization, you can only maintain images in your head for 10 to 15 seconds, normally. As you get stronger, it's like muscles. You get to do it for 40 minutes if you want to. In the beginning, when you're trying to learn movements, it's very useful to imagine it in your head. So say you're making espresso. You imagine your right hand picking a portafilter, put it inside the grinder, the coffee will come out, and then you knock, and then you take your temper, right? So you imagine these movements, and then you do exactly the same thing in real life. What the visualization does is that it creates a neurological pathway in your brain that is almost similar to actually doing it in real life. So by the time you do it in real life, you already do it smoothly. And then you build from temping, maybe putting it inside the machine, press a button. So you build like that. Eventually, you can do, if you're a barista competitor, the full 15 minutes just in your head. And then if you get even better, you do the first 15 minutes, and then you can pause in the middle, and then you do an alternate version of that.
How changed your life in this year after win?
Yeah, a lot. Even for me, I think I was already traveling, I was already working with brands, things like that. Yeah, the intensity goes really crazy. And I'm very grateful and I'm very lucky for that. I had a little bit of training after WBC Boston to handle this kind of things. But now it changed a lot. I fly all the time. I meet different people, different nationalities, different culture, seeing coffee in different ways, working with more brands. But also the pressure is higher, right? Because now when I go, I don't just go as Mikael, the coffee professional, I go as Mikael, the World Barista Champion. So people always expect world champion quality every single time. And I'm human, even world champions are human. Every now and then you have this ups and downs in terms of quality, but I guess our job, my job, is to make sure that the level is so high that even when you have an off day, that off day is still better than majority of other people. So yeah, the work doesn't stop. I still exercise anytime I can. I did gain a little bit of weight because people give me nice food, nice drinks. And I think I was talking to Hide, my mentor. He saw me, I think after a year, he was like, oh, I'm so happy you gained weight because he's like, because it means you're enjoying your days as well, not just working. I'm like, yeah, I know, it's a good excuse. But yeah, I enjoy the food and the drinks because I get to taste a lot of different cultures. Right? You know, I'm in Russia, eating pelmeni, borscht, you know, like all rough coffee, and you know, the only way to taste them is to enjoy them, right? You cannot just spit, you know, like, come on. So, but I still work out. I still try to run. I still try to do exercise so that I maintain energy, so I can work non-stop and don't get sick. Because before this, I was working somewhere else. After this, I still have to work somewhere else. So I have to maintain that energy. A lot of changes, good changes, both personally in my life, professionally in my businesses. And I'm happy that the changes are not just for me. The changes are for people around me as well. Their life also changed. I have this manager in China. And apparently there's a Chinese saying. I don't know what it says in Chinese, but the English translation is that when one person is lifted to nirvana, their entire family, humans, dogs, pets, like chicken and all that, they all get lifted as well. And she said this to me after I won. I'm like, that's a really good, one is a really good analogy, but also it's a really good reminder for me personally to, whenever I have opportunity, to not only think about me, but also think about how do I lift my people, my community as well.
By what factor did your income increase this year? Not in actual money, but just as a multiplier. For example, let's say it was this much and it doubled or went up 1.5 times or tripled. By what factor did your income increase?
With the brand ambassadorship, probably 5x, 6x, around there. I continued working with most of the brands that I started with, like Victoria Arduino, for example. But obviously, the role is upgraded, right? There were some people who say that, oh, after you won, like all these barista champions take brand ambassadorship jobs and you're a sellout, whatever. But how else are we supposed to, make a living? I think one is great for the barista profession because it shows people that every year there will be one World Barista Champion and then you have other Brewers Champion, Coffee and Spirits, whatever. I think it's a really good career pathway and example that if you achieve this, you have an opportunity to not only change your life, but to change the life of people around you. And how do you do that? It's through these brand ambassadorship deals, right? I think everybody wins because the brand wins, they get your voice, you win because you get the money. And other people also win because now more people can learn from the recipes that I and my team do and things like this. So I think it's a really great opportunity. And I think especially in countries like Indonesia, where baristas don't get paid much, it's a really good example to show them that, if you work hard, you put yourself in the right position, you can also be like me.
How much time in this year you make a selfie with people?
Oh, selfie, right, a lot.
What
I
do you
don't
think?
know. A lot. And I think it's great. I always try to, like when I'm in public, I understand my role as the World Barista Champion. And that means if somebody asks me for pictures, signature, and all that, I always say yes. Why? Because I was once like that. I remember the first time a famous barista came to my cafe, which was Matt Berger. I was shaking, I was very nervous making him coffee, and then I asked him for a picture and a signature, and he was very kind. And then I met a few other baristas who were also very kind. And because of that, I was inspired, and because I was inspired, I kept competing, and eventually I won. And then I can change my life and the people around me. Imagine if they were being assholes to me. Maybe I would quit. I'm like, I don't want to be a rockstar barista. They're all not very nice people. So I try to be very nice to people when I go out, because then you only need to change one person and then they can change other person, right? So whoever I met in this period of time in any country, hopefully if at least from one country each they become barista champions, then my impact would be really big. So
Let's move on to our product, which we've been creating all week. We've recorded an online course, your own authored online course. Can you tell us about it? Who is it for and who will it help?
we recorded a espresso barista course, and there are two levels. One is more basic, foundational, talking about what coffee is, simple recipes that you can follow, not really what is the best, but just something to follow. Very simple for beginner level. And then the second one is more intermediate, when maybe you're a new barista starting up, or if you want to open a cafe, something you can learn and apply and talk about a little bit on how to adjust your coffee flavors. So not just making it anymore, but how to adjust the flavors. And then we also throw in a little bit of competition preparation. Obviously, it's very hard to condense competition preparation in an online form, but it's things that you can look at when you're starting that journey. The rest of it you have to apply yourself, but at least just from my experience, I pinpoint which one is the most important part, and then from there you can put in the work yourself.
We'll leave a link in the description for a free lesson for those who want to get acquainted with the product. Here's what we've come up with. Take a look at the production. Maybe it will be useful to you and change your life. Mikael, tell us about your method in this course. So, what are you sharing there? What are you, tell us about your own unique method, the one you share, including for preparing for the championship.
Yeah, a lot of it is the basics. As simple as how much coffee you put in, how much coffee you get out, how many seconds. But with the competition is the learnings that I had. Some of it are about coffee. Some of it are not really related to coffee, like how to be organized, how to prepare mentally. That stuff is applicable not just in coffee, but also in whatever you do in life. So I think hopefully people get to see how I apply that in my life, and then they can apply it in their life too. Obviously, still within the context of this course, we always relate it back to coffee.
Recently, your mentee became the world champion in coffee alcohol. So, you had 3 second-place finishes, and it turns out your mentee has surpassed you in this regard. It's always nice when your student, in this discipline, surpasses the teacher. Tell us, what did you feel?
Obviously, I'm very happy for him. Before him, my wife won the national and was in the final for Coffee and Good Spirits as well, so she also beat me. But yeah, I'm super happy for them, because I think everybody has their own path. And me coming second every single time in Coffee and Good Spirits is a sign for me that it's not my path. So I don't feel any jealousy or anything towards them, because he literally changed his life by himself. Sure, our team and myself, we provide certain resources and all that, but with competition, if the competitor doesn't work for it, no matter how expensive your coffee is, no matter how expensive your coach is, you're not gonna win. It has to be the person. When he first came to us 5 years ago, no English at all, not even creating drinks. He can really do basic ones, but the really complicated stuff that he does now, he learned that. And my leadership and coaching style are never really holding your hands and showing you the way. No, that's not my style. My style is always either to test your limit by putting you into the fire and see if you can survive or not, or I'll tell you, this is how I do it, this is how I think you should do it, but you have to do it yourself. He has a public speaking coach, a psychologist, a therapist that works with him, a coffee coach, my wife, and also a lot of the things that he learned from books and videos of other people. And he came from a background that is more similar to most baristas in Indonesia, meaning he really worked from the bottom and then make his way up to the top. When it's me, some people say, Mikael have a little bit of privilege, he was born in a good family, went to Australia to study, of course he can be a world champion, right? But when it's Audi, what's your excuse? There's literally no excuse. Here's this guy who just did everything right, worked really hard to become a world champion. There's no...
Self-made.
Yeah, it's really, really self-made, yeah.
You're saying that coffee changes lives, the catalyst for change. So tell me, in your opinion, how exactly can the wonderful world of coffee truly change a dedicated barista's entire life?
Really, coffee is really an agent that can change your life, because it sounds simple, but I think it's one of the only few things in the world that everyone can relate to. That's why the impact is so big, because even if you don't work in coffee, you drink coffee. Most people would at least have drank coffee once in their life. If you're a barista, then if you do well in coffee, not just competition, you don't have to compete, but if you do well in your work in the coffee industry, then you can really change your life. We have examples of people who started as a barista and then opened a roastery and have really good businesses. We went to one of the roasteries this week. The first time I met Dima was a long time ago, and then through his work, he competed and he coached, but also he can do other things outside of competition. And there are a lot of examples like that where you're not only changing your life, but you're changing a lot of other people's life. If you're a barista, very new barista, maybe you feel like you're small, you don't have any impact, but you are impacting the life of your customer. That morning, maybe that person is very sleepy and then they drink your coffee and then become energetic because of your coffee. That's already a life-changing moment. It might be small, but it is a life-changing moment. You never know. And as your opportunity and responsibility grows, that change is normally more profound, more impactful. But it always starts with that simple cup of coffee. It can be very simple, like waking you up, and it can be very profound, like changing your life.
But despite all that, Mikael, you've remained a down-to-earth guy. I have a funny story. After Moscow, I went to Ryazan and left you for one day to organize the festival. And when I asked my brother to pick you up from Moscow, I told him that you were a very important guest for me. Everything needed to be perfect. Help with the luggage, help load it up, pick out some good food. Basically, you need to get involved in this. And yesterday after the festival, he told me that when you were driving from Moscow, you got hungry and asked for pelmeni and where you could get some. So in the end, you stopped at a gas station and you asked for pelmeni. They didn't have any freshly cooked pelmeni. And in the end, they made you instant pelmeni. My brother says, my whole perception just broke. You told me he was like a superstar and that everything had to be top class. But here I am, watching him eat instant pelmeni at a gas station.
I drank fancy water. I had French water.
We spent a week in Russia. First we spent 3 days recording the course. In the evenings we went to coffee shops, dropped by Coffee Mania and ran into your old friend Dasha there. You met Gleb Nevikin, the first world champion in Sezve Brewing. We stopped by your friend Dima's place at the production facility. Then we went to Ryazan. You judged the championship for determining the best coffee shop in Russia. How did you like it here with us?
Yeah, it's nice. It's always nice for me to visit a new place. Russia, this is obviously the first time, never been. It's a country where the cultures that I see is either in the movies, which is not told by Russians, it's always told by some other people, or I met Russians overseas. And that's also already a little bit different because you're in a different environment. So it's really good to see the coffee culture, which is relevant to my profession, but also the people and how the people, just like any people anywhere, people are nice. I think that's what a lot of people forget, you know, like almost like us and them, but it's people are people and it's all one. It's very similar. There are nice people, there are not so nice people, there are warm people, there are not so warm people. But in general, people are always nice. And I'm really glad that I could connect with the community, with everybody really, the professionals whom I have met in the international circuit, but also the really local coffee community here in Ryazan. I'm glad that we get to see the big city and the not so big city, because then I can see the difference as well. And all in all, I think it's great.
Final Blitz round. Do you remember the cup of coffee after which you changed your attitude towards this product? You tried it and thought, wow, is this really coffee?
Yeah, Ethiopia Guji from Cartel Roasters in Melbourne. I was at Manchester Press already working as a barista, but we were doing Italian dark roast. So we wanted to change to a new roastery, and then these guys from Cartel, they came with an Ethiopian Guji. And it was the first time I taste coffee that tastes like, you know, fruits. Before that, it was just bitter. Yeah.
If you had to stay on a truly deserted island and could choose only one particular type of coffee, which single coffee would it ultimately be?
If it has to be a single coffee from a single farm, a Wash Panamanian Geisha from Johnson Estate.
If you had to choose to live in just one particular place for the entire rest of your life, what specific and wonderful place would that truly be?
Man, it's hard. Maybe Bali.
Bali.
Yeah.
If you could have only one person by your side for the rest of your life, who would it be?
My wife, because she might be watching this.
And finally, the last question. When you eventually won in Busan, you had rehearsed many times precisely how you would win, how you would proudly hold the cup, how you would then pass it to your right hand. Tell me, where will Mikael Jasin be in 5 years? Who will he be? What will he be doing?
After I won, I knew I will have, well, back then I didn't know it was 18 months, but I knew I had a long run. I said to myself, this 18 months, I will go to every place, I will explore every opportunity, I will do everything that I can, and then absorb everything. And in October, when I get to retire, I will find what I want to do next. Because I don't want to make really big decisions this year, because I just want to explore everything. So I don't have that 5-year goal. It's funny, I was telling this to Hidenori, my mentor. And then I was like, oh, you know, I'm gonna take 2 weeks holiday after Milan in Tuscany, finding out what I want to do next. And then very quickly he said, you're not gonna find anything. You don't waste your time, just pick something to do. So yeah, I don't know exactly, but for sure it's still in coffee. 5 years is not a long time. It's actually very short. I have my businesses that I have been neglecting for the past 1.5 years. So I think it would be nice to maybe a bit more involved again. I have my cafe that I'm trying to, another branch, but I'm trying to take them on the road. So it starts in Jakarta, but we're going to Bangkok next month. we're going to Macau in January, China in June. So like the idea is to move around every month or so with this cafe. I don't have a very clear goal like I did when I was trying to be the World Barista Champion. That was my goal for almost 9 years, or almost 10 years. It was a very clear goal. It was very easy. Everything that I did, I only asked this question: will this decision take me one step closer to becoming a World Barista Champion or not? Because that was the goal, right? If the answer is no, I don't do it. If the answer is yes, I do it. So now I need to find that goal again.
We've been here with Mikael Jasin, the 2024 World Barista Champion. Mikael, welcome to Russia.
Thank you. Paka paka.